Hello and welcome to another Autoflow webinar. I'm your host, Craig O'Neill, and with me today for our topic on friction in the shop, we have assembled a panel that it's a dream team for me. This is actually a lot of fun having these two in, in your room together, not all in the same room right here technically, but Dennis McCarron and Chris Cloutier, thank you both so much for joining us. Dennis, you've been a mentor, friend, and coach in this industry for a long time, a mentor and friend of myself with Chris as well. The training that you've provided has been priceless over the years. And as soon as Chris and I were talking on this topic, your name was top of the list for who we need to have this conversation with. I'm so glad it worked out. Thanks for being here.
You're absolutely welcome, Craig. Happy to be here.
Awesome. And Chris Cloutier. Oh, yeah. And Chris Cloutier, thank you for the thoughts on this topic. It came about in an interesting way. I mentioned it in the description of our webinar. We were in the marketing meeting with our colleague, Scott Werner. He's behind the scenes with us here today. Boy, he went down a rabbit trail, it sounds like, as he was doing some industry research, which inevitably brings anybody to Reddit. And he asked that question. He asked the question in the meeting, is this really representative of the industry? And we were both kind of like, well, kind of. The attitude that you see there. And hey, Chris, you get it. You obviously have it. We talk in the software side of the company, but you're a shop owner, 2 locations, soon to be 3.
Soon to be 3. Yes. And glad to be on here and glad to have Dennis on here. And I don't know if that's a compliment to Dennis or a dig on Dennis. We were like, hey, let's have a conversation on friction. And Dennis is the guy we want here, right? That says a lot about Dennis and multiple different levels. So the conversation, right, that Scott had come across it was about inspections. And we're not going to talk a lot about inspections, right? But he was surprised that a technician was basically saying, no, I'm not going to do inspections. Like, not going to do digital inspections, just not going to do it because it's just not my thing. And Scott was shocked that this technician was basically dictating what they weren't going to do at a shop. And it ended up being I think a really good conversation, laying down the framework for this webinar, which is friction, right? Which is, whether or not we see it as minor friction or major friction, like friction is all day long. If you're a business owner in a shop, this is what happens. So yeah, it's interesting. And we know this, Craig, and in all the statistics we go over, I still to this day, I have people go, no, everybody's got to be using inspections or digital software. And I'm like, no, it's just not. The statistics are not supporting. Everybody owns it, but not everybody's using it.
Yeah.
Right.
No. Spot on.
And why aren't people using it? And I think it goes to change. Anytime you're going to have change, you're going to have friction.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and Dennis, you know this. You came from a background in the retail tire business, auto service as well. You've been an industry veteran managing and facilities, and then later on, an educational background with distance learning, business communications. I keep calling you a human behavior expert, and you always bristle at the term expert on this. What do you prefer to say?
I'm a student.
All right. Very humble approach. I appreciate that.
A well-educated student, but
a professional student in that capacity. Yes.
I always like to remind people that yes, I've spent the large part of my adulthood studying human behavior, and this is true, I taught martial arts to the most prolific bank robber in U.S. history and didn't know it.
Oh, I forgot about this story.
Yeah,
that's a good story.
I bristle at expert because there really is no such thing. There's patterns, there's predictability, but there's no 2 + 2 = 4. It doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's fair. And one of the things we wanted this conversation because, hey, look, we recognize that the reality in most shops is that there's friction in the facility. We even took a poll, and the poll results were really in line with what I expected to see. A lot of facilities indicating that they used to, but don't have one anymore, got wised up, maybe got rid of something or it changed in other ways. I would say a little over 3/4 of people are admitting to some friction in the facility. And that fits the narrative that I thought we'd see, which is that this is more common than not.
I like the, yes, I think I am that person.
Hey, ask me why I added that option.
if you are the owner, I mean, like it should be 100%. Yes, you are that person causing friction in your shop,
That would be good.
right? I mean, you're the one making the rules. You're the one enforcing the rules, hopefully. So you're causing friction.
Yeah.
There's it's hard enough to find agreement, consensus, and common ground between two people. But in every shop moment, outside of working by yourself, like after all the, you're just working on the car, there's actually three entrenched, interested parties in every conversation. There's the company, the advisor or salesperson, depending on their skill level, and the technician, a minimum of three. You can get vendors in, you can get spouses, and all of a sudden you're at 5, 6 interested parties. But if you have three interested parties in a conversation where only two people are talking, there's going to be friction somewhere. You're going to bury it. You're going to address it head on. You're going to pass the buck. There are lots of things you can do with the friction, but some people that say there's zero friction in my shop, I'm sorry, that's not how business works.
Yeah. What is the quote? I stole it from Richard Branson, or I can't remember, but it's, if you want people to like you and you want to be in business, go sell ice cream.
Go sell.
And I would argue that even the guy who sells ice cream probably has an angry customer every once in a while because the ice cream's not cold enough.
Yeah,
it's not melty enough. Doesn't have the right flavor for their particular taste, right? Even the ice cream person probably has friction at some point in time in their year of selling ice cream, which is probably one of the least friction businesses that exists.
Yeah. No, and I think this makes a lot of sense. Yeah, minimum of 3, right? And if only 2 are talking, you get friction. Makes a lot of sense here. And so let's do a reality check here with Reddit. Right, there's a couple of threads you could go down. I stay off of Reddit. I'm going to tell you right now, great use of AI. It'll search Reddit for you, so you don't have to. Probably the safer way to go. But there's really some dominant themes that it even picked up that I thought, yeah, of course, old school versus new school technology divide. There's the parts changers versus the diagnostician conflicts. And then there's really the territorial attitudes, that's not my job type of crowds, or why is that falling? I mean, I see that a lot in dealership conversations versus aftermarket conversations and everything in between. But there's some consequences to unaddressed friction. And I think that's the main thesis of this conversation. If we just let that be the norm and do nothing about it, I think that's selling ourselves short. I think you guys have experienced and practical wisdom that I've learned from knowing you over the years that really kind of confronts it head on and tries to address it and has a plan even when addressing it isn't working. And that's the way I see it going down today. And I figured the flow is going to be originally, we'll start with diagnostics on this. Like, how do we identify this? Like, what behavioral markers are telling you that friction is the thing that we're actually dealing with versus even something worse like hostility when someone needs to be managed versus something else. Dennis, you have that phrase and it always comes up, and I've learned it from you, and I've heard it from you multiple times when we've had consultations, and it's, you cannot warm hostility.
You can't. And there's lots of different ways to say that, but to explain to everybody listening, hostility here is a technical term. It's not violence. It means me first. It means selfishness. It means prioritize my own needs. That is hostility. That leads to violence. That leads to angry. That leads to what people associate with upsetting behavior. So hostility is just, your priorities are different than mine, and I'm going to stand my ground and be aggressive. You can't be nice to someone who's defending their territory. You're an intruder at that point. So it's like telling someone who's nervous, calm down. You can't tell anxious to calm down. You can't tell angry to be nice. It just doesn't work. It's a waste of time. Hostility means that's where the person is mentally. So if you want to find common ground or you want to align priorities, you go where they are and you appease what's designing that in their head. You don't roll over and play dead and show your belly. That's submissiveness. That's trying to be warm, being nice to hostility. You have to meet the hostility with assertiveness and say, okay, you're here. What is it that you want? And make them state whatever it is that they want. Now you've found common ground. You found something to talk about. As far as employees go, you said diagnostics. I'm not working on that Volkswagen. So what you're saying is, even though you're a diagnostic technician, you refuse to work on all Volkswagens. Am I hearing that correctly? You are assertive without the aggressiveness. So just get them to say clearly what it is that they're actually arguing about. You don't have to come to a conclusion. You don't have to resolve every problem, but get it on the table so there's no further miscommunication on the topic. If you are scared of hostility, if you back down from hostility, people see that as gaining ground. They're moving their fence out a little further on their property.
Well, I think you just hit it on the head here. I feel like that is exactly, shop owners especially do fear hostility right now in the climate of a shortage. And Chris, you know this too from shop owners.
Yeah, I want to, man, one thing that I just want to point out to Dennis, which he's absolutely wrong. Whenever I call Verizon support and I'm talking to the person who can't understand because the line sucks and I'm super angry and I press 15,000 like 15,000 times, and they tell me, "Don't be angry. Why are you angry right now?" I immediately calm down, Dennis. So I don't know what you're talking about. I mean, that's where, that's like a perfect example. And I remember Dennis saying that, like, and I'm gonna, for conflict resolution, it's one of the things that I teach my team all the time is acknowledge their hostility, right? Acknowledge that they're angry. And be like, I see that you're angry. Yeah, I see that you're angry right now. And another thing, like I want to point out, Dennis, that just beautifully, is he asked the question, and not the asshole question where you already know the answer. He's asking back a legitimate question, because when that technician then hears the question of what they just stated, they go, whoa, well, I don't mean that, boss. Yeah, I don't mean that. I'm not going to work at all. It's just this. But so I'm sitting here being a student, Dennis. I just want to point out these two things, and he's absolutely correct. One, acknowledge when somebody's angry. Don't try and talk them down from being angry, because it's their opinion, and they're entitled to it, right? And then his craft of, I always tell I've told my wife this, tell my kids this, to tell y'all see me in all my companies. Like, I ask questions. I ask a lot of questions, and I tell my wife this all the time. The person asking the question is in control of the conversation. Not the one who's getting angry and making it. The one asking question gets to lead the conversation where they want it to go and gets to keep a cool head about themselves versus the one who's super angry and just wants to do it. So beautiful. Yeah. Dennis's statement, once again, I just want to dissect it, because he is a master, not a master. He's a very educated student on hostility and how to sometimes, and just want to point out one more thing, which has happened, and I've used this APAC so many times, is once again, talking to an angry customer.
We're going to have to define that.
And they go, oh, and then I go, man, I understand you are angry right now. Yeah, I'm angry as hell. I can tell you're angry as hell. And Dennis says this, and then you hear him go, oh. And literally you feel the temperature change in the conversation, and then you can start having a conversation. Beautiful.
That's called venting. And that a lot of people are afraid of venting because they think it's raising the temperature. And venting is just blowing it off. It's very different. Like you brought up what's called a leading question. When you already know the answer, it's a leading question. They know you know the answer to that question. So that makes them angrier. So if you can end your question in comma stupid question mark, are you, and because it comes in tone too, right? There's a difference between saying, I realize you're angry, and patronizing and going, boy, are you angry?
Yeah.
Like, it's condescending, and everybody picks up on it. And venting is a necessary process in standing your ground to angry or aggressive. So you stand your ground, but you don't press. Oh boy, we could spend an hour just on that.
Oh, APAC. I didn't anticipate it. Believe it or not, I never anticipated pulling APAC into this conversation, but I started hearing it. And guys, it's worth defining for a second for the audience that has not heard this term.
Yes.
It's a great acronym. The last two make an acronym I learned from Dennis. They're kind of the same part of this. It's really a 3-step thing, but kind of 4. Acknowledge, probe, answer, confirm. You've started with this, Dennis, and Chris reinforced this as well. You are actually getting them to explain to you. This is great for any conflict resolution, by the way. It works great for customer service, angry customers, you name it.
It's communication skills.
Yep.
And Dennis, you taught me this is a necessary thing to occur before there's ever a peaceful resolution on any conflict, period.
What a lot of people don't understand when you're talking about communication skills is these things will happen. You give the worst salesperson in the world a ticket to sell, and they will hit all of the things that happen in a sales conversation. They will just do it wildly out of order. And it takes a half an hour, and it's actually the worst salesperson in the world. It's a 50-50 chance of selling the ticket because it's the other person that makes the decision. It just takes long, and it builds up frustration, and you get angry when you're dealing with someone who doesn't seem to care or know or value. But APAC is just an organization of what naturally occurs. And the first letter is acknowledge. And I'm after 30 plus years of doing this, I could shorten it to A.
Yeah,
I really could. The other
stuff
stuff
there, it helps a lot, right?
Guys blow by the flag that gets raised that says, I am protesting. I have an objection. I am stating my feelings. I don't understand. They raise the flag, and our guys, sales, management, they all
husbands to wives.
Wives to husbands.
Leadership. So we're talking about friction, right? The friction gets, I mean, when you agree, Dennis, like if you don't acknowledge and you gloss past it, right, that's creating more friction between you and that person because they're not being acknowledged for their problem and their initial concern. And this is in adopting new technology. It's in changing the way your shop's going to move. It's in training. Like, I don't want to go to training. I don't need to know anything about training. There's acknowledging, okay, you don't think, and then there's probing. Why don't you think? Like, I acknowledge that you don't think you need training, and that's cool. Now let's start getting to why. What happened? Because, in school, I thought it was all stupid. Okay, well, hey, we're going to see your technician training. You're a good technician. Hey, we're going to incentivize you for this training. Like, start getting to the root. And I think that's really what it is. This 8-pack helps you peel back the layers of the onion and really get to what's the problem, right? Instead of glossing over and just saying, don't worry about it, kid. I got it covered, which we're all adults in all the organizations that are run now. The one thing that I absolutely know for a fact is we're all adults because I don't hire children because I can't, right? Because there's labor laws. I would, but right. And so that's what adult doesn't want to be acknowledged and know that they're an adult, right? And how many times as business owners do we once you gloss over the acknowledge? So once again, great point, Dennis. Like if we just acknowledge, that would probably solve a lot of our initial friction points.
And to really nail down, put a pin in the bullseye. When you acknowledge, just state what you think is going on and let them respond. Let them correct you. Yeah. Everything that comes out of your mouth, you already know. Let them correct you. That doesn't mean that they're right. It means this is what they believe. And it's a process. You have to let it breathe so that the real problem comes to the surface.
Yeah.
If you jump on the first thing that they say and start to problem solve,
Yeah.
you could be solving a false problem because they haven't told you the truth yet.
I think entire sitcom narratives are written off of that tendency, right? We're just going to start solving that problem. All right.
Family Ties, Cheers, Taxi. The whole premise of those shows is get the problem wrong in the first 5 minutes, spend the next 20 hilariously showing how wrong they are, and with 5 minutes left, get to the truth and have a happy ending.
Exactly.
The 80s wrapped up in a bow.
Yeah. Well, I feel like another thing, and you guys may agree with this here too, is that in order to acknowledge and probe successfully as a leader, you require this one trait, and that is genuine curiosity about what that person thinks. And I feel like sometimes we don't care. And that's a big problem.
Because we've heard the conversation 10,000 times.
Correct. Our reasons for not caring might be because we've already assumed we know what they're going to say.
Yeah. I mean, you hear my brakes are squeaking. You have $500 in your head. You know what's wrong. When you hear, well, they were squeaking and now they're grinding. It's $1,000. So you just want to get, if you know where the finish line is, let's just get to the finish line. The problem is you can't drag someone across a finish line screaming and yelling that they don't know why they're being dragged, whether that's an employee or a customer.
They don't know why they're being dragged.
No. Buck up, Buttercup. This is a process. Walk with them.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. And I would say, we talk about this, and, there's a key to like Toastmasters, right? And, we always are constantly, talking about Toastmasters. One of the things Toastmasters does is listening, active listening, and actually trying to hear, and like there's roles in there that you're actually listening for different pieces of speech or parts of speech, right? So how often are we training ourselves to really actually, like you said, Craig, care? And I think busy, 4-letter word. Dennis wrote an article about it in what magazine was it? It was
Modern Tire Dealer.
Yeah. Modern Tire Dealer a couple years ago, and busy's a 4-letter word. Oh, decade! Holy crap, we're old now. But that's, I'll tell you, my fault when it comes to being an owner is that I get busy and I don't want to spend the extra 5 minutes to actually listen and care when I know I should, because my job as a leader is to be there and to listen and support, remove barriers for my team, make sure we're all heading in the right direction. Part of that is active listening to the needs and issues of my people. And I think the really good leaders do a good job, and they understand, I need to take time to listen. Whether or not it's your superpower or not, listening actually isn't that hard. It could be all of our superpowers. It's just we I think busy get in the way a lot of times of that active listening.
And Chris, a lot of people aren't leaders, and they don't understand that sometimes it's not the right time to talk about it. Open door policy was the rage in the 90s, and managers got all bent out of shape because they weren't getting their job done. Because sometimes you got to close your door, and you got to do the work. You put pencil to paper, or a stylus to screen, I guess.
Well, sure. And I think, Dennis, you just really hit on this too. Is it time to have this conversation? Because the common decision in a shop, when you hit friction, is like, there's work to be done. It's approved. It's right there. It's ready to go. This guy, he might be giving me friction on this policy change, but he's a high producer. I just need him producing. And so we keep pushing aside the issues. And it's a good decision for rational reasons in that moment in many cases.
You have to understand if you focus on short term, you are sacrificing long-term results. If you focus on long-term, you are sacrificing short-term results. You have to marry the results and figure out what it is you want as a leader. Like some people come to you and complain about everything, and you become the asshole, right? and if that's the issue, you are prioritizing short-term over long-term. You will never get to long-term stuff that leaders need to be focused on.
The absolute crux of this issue. Absolutely. I believe the thing. Chris?
And I want to point out too, I think one of the things that we one of the gaps that I think leaders need to fill, and this is a wartime CEO versus a peacetime CEO, is a lot of us are wartime. Go read, there's a good book called The Hard Thing About Hard Things. That part of the book talks about wartime, peacetime. It's process and procedures. So if you have like some sort of structure, I see this often in shops, is there's not a lot of process in place. There's not rules and regulations in place. So the goalposts are constantly moving, right? The game's constantly shifting, and so nobody really knows what their job is or what their job isn't, depending on what the shop owner feels should be their job that day or not their job that day. So I think that whether you have a stringent 300-page book, so for me, like at my auto repair shops, now the software company is a little bit different. Like I try to do my best to create jobs, but it's constantly shifting because software is constantly shifting. So forgive me, software people are listening to this and like, Chris, our job's not very well defined because it's sometimes shifting like daily. But like auto repair shop, like I have one and a half, 2-page descriptions for what it needs to be a technician at Gold. What we expect from you, how many ASCs, what kind of diagnostics we want you to do, what kind of jobs you should be able to do, what kind of, and for general service and for service writers and for the manager and for, so one, right, if they're like, there's no, well, I should be a technician. Well, no, here's all the things you need to be if you're general service to become a technician. And then to be a high diagnostic technician is this, right? So at least we have some guidelines to discuss. That way it's not just all what we feel that day or what we think is right and wrong that day. We also, in our company policy, there's a couple of non-negotiables that we put in there. They're like, you threaten another employee, you're fired. You steal from the company, you're fired. You threaten a customer, you're fired. Like non-negotiable. And those have to be like that. And we have let people go because of those non-negotiables. Because there's sometimes, I guess what I'm saying is we create the friction because we're changing it constantly and our people don't know what, versus laying down some structure and foundation. So at least we can go, look, and I'm going to say this, like, I'm not strict on the rules. I do bend rules. There are outlines and all that, but at least there's boundaries, right? And versus just nothing whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. So Chris, I'll give you the scenario and see if you think it's as common as I perceive it. But any communication that needs to last a long time needs to be written down. That's why there's job descriptions, rule books, things like that. How many times does an employee come up and say, you told me, and then the boss who's feeling a separate priority, customer's angry, the owner's angry, there's pressure to make sales, goes, forget that. And all of a sudden you moved an immovable boundary. Well, what's that teach all the employees? They're all movable. Mm-hmm. So now when you don't move it, it's friction. So I agree 100%.
That's a great point.
That at you, it's when somebody comes up and says, this is what you told me, and now this is what you're saying.
Yeah.
The rationale is to make a quick decision, like forget it. But the reality is go 2 seconds. Did I? Like, give yourself some grace. Like maybe you made a mistake. Now's the time to back up 2 steps instead of 2 weeks when this really comes to a head.
No, I agree with that, Dennis, wholeheartedly. I do. So, and it goes to, I won't pick eye goggles. I'm not, because goggles in shops, like that's going to be a forever, like problem forever.
You're a full face mask shop? No.
But let's pick uniforms, right? Like, I like my guys all to be uniforms. I like them all wearing, uniform shirts, from front counter to back counter, right? How many times have I walked in the shop in a year and somebody's, got a hat that doesn't match, or they've got a pullover that's not golden rule, and I have to make a choice right then because it says in the rule book, like you need to wear it. Do I ignore it for the minute, or do I go, hey, let me make sure I get your golden rule hat. Do you not have a jacket that I can get you? And sometimes, Dennis, and that's the friction. How much friction have we had that day? How much friction we had with this employee? And sometimes we go, just gonna look the other way maybe at this moment because I don't think it's that big of a deal because it's just a cold day. And this is exactly why, this conversation we're having this, right? Because I think once you start looking at all the little things you do as a business owner throughout the day, you'll notice that there's a lot of friction in your day-to-day operations because of the fact that sometimes we choose not to enforce the rules. And are we doing ourselves a disservice by that?
I think
that's that long term, before you know it, everybody's wearing, pink pullovers and nothing like there's anything wrong with pink, but they're just wearing off color, not because we like black, and they're now wearing, yellow shirts with stains all over them. And then it looks poorly to our customer. Right. So, yeah, great point.
So I think you bring up a really good point. A lot of guys, they'll roll their eyes and go, oh, if uniforms were my biggest problem. Hey, bud, I agree with you. I'll put it in terms of my world. We went to a paintball team building event.
Oh, fun.
And I'll just look at them and go, oh, I bet that went well. And they look at me like, how did you know? I'm like, because you don't have a team. You've got a bunch of independent contractors in your shop, which means they became a bunch of independent snipers.
Interesting.
All crotch shots and all neck shots.
Nice.
It's guaranteed, or they have a Christmas party and everybody gets hammered. Like, you don't have a team. You can't do team building. So there's a priority, right? You go into your shop and there's a pile of dirt, but the building's on fire. I don't care about that pile of dirt right now. I do have bigger fish to fry here. The building's on fire. The tires, it's all over. So I got to put out the fire. You have to prioritize, and better than prioritize, you have to organize your thoughts. As a CEO or an owner, or even as a manager, you have to organize and prioritize. What is it I'm trying to accomplish on a daily basis, and go through that process every day. Some shops I've worked at, we had a written down opening procedure and closing procedure. Some shops, I didn't need to do that because everyone was experienced and they didn't make mistakes. So you have to, one of the things, the worst things, Craig, you go to a lot of training. One of the worst things you can hear is when somebody says, when I ran a shop, nobody cares. You're not running a shop.
Line.
Nobody cares how I ran a shop. I tend to pick my mistakes as examples because of that. Nobody wants to know how I did it well, because it only existed in that moment.
Yeah.
Each team I built created a different environment, and many of them were unsuccessful. I couldn't get the recipe right, but a lot of them were successful. So a lot of it over time became, okay, I have this burning priority, but I have to address the organization. Is it, Chris, you and I used to talk about urgent and a priority and urgent. It can't just be one of the two. If it's both, it's a 4-alarm fire. You got to handle it. But if you're in the beginning of the day, like, this is why managers showing up 2 minutes before the door opens is no good. You need 10 minutes to your own brain to just sit there and stare at the wall sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
You got to look at the tickets that were dropped off the night before. You got to think through the day, look at the appointments, make sure the money's right. Like, there's things your brain needs to do in order to get ready to unlock that front door. Being an owner or a CEO is the same thing. Like, you have to establish your day and allow for variables when stuff catches fire.
Yeah.
And then come back, to your center console and make sure your Craig, make sure your altimeter is steady. You're always
pre-flight,
coming back to that, because if the engine's on fire, but you're at 500 feet and headed straight down, the engine on fire isn't your problem anymore.
Oh yeah, and a good flight instructor will teach you the little phrases and things to go when an emergency does happen. And then you go through that sequence and you rehearse and you train and you rehearse and you train. But those are all preset in mind, ready to go. And you're anticipating those issues right on takeoff roll before you pull up, where you're going to put that plane down if the engine quits and at what time and all the things. And
yeah, so let's talk about urgent versus important, right? And I agree. So let's take once again, I'm going to just take digital inspections, not because we're a digital inspection company, right? But let's just take that as the change, because this kind of was the catalyst for all of it, right? So I agree with Dennis. If like your building's on fire every day, right, then you have a problem, right? You got some other things you need to fix. But once you're kind of in a somewhat stable mood, and I agree, right? You change the importance of start prioritizing those important things, and you say, hey guys, you know what, we've been doing inspection, we kind of been doing a half-assed. Now we're going to do them digitally, because I can track them better, and here's what the base expectations are, and here's what the things. There's going to be challenge there. There's going to be friction there. It's going to raise the temperature of your shop, right? It absolutely 100% will. But it's important, and it's you're going to have your urgent, so-and-so's tablet broke, all this. But over the long run, it's absolutely important and critical to the business for growth, transparency, all the things that come with this thing that you're adopting. And one of the things I think, I tell people this all the time, like, why is digital inspection versus paper inspection? And at first, it's just, let's get it through our heads. It's a good inspection that must be done on a vehicle, because if it's my mother, my daughter, my sister, my child, I don't want them stranded on a highway after they just went in for an oil change on a highway at midnight because the belt busted, because nobody told me that the belt was fraying. Why is digital better? Because you can take a picture of it and a dad can get it, or the husband can get it. It creates the transparency in this transaction. And that is completely super important to your whole, everybody wants this best customer service in the whole world. What does that mean? I can tell you this: a shop that does good inspections, good thorough inspections, that takes good videos, that takes good pictures, that gives good write-ups, is providing high customer service and satisfaction to their customers, guaranteed. And it's something tangible that you can read, you can see, you can touch, you can feel, you can see, right? And you see the results in the ARO. We always talk about ARO increase. It's the customer satisfaction that increases exponentially. It's important. We'll have your urgent stuff you got to get done, but in the long run, you must prioritize this importance and get them in, right? And that's got to be their job. And you're going back to earlier, like, you can't look the other way when it starts slipping. You have to go, okay, maybe so-and-so's having a bad day, so his write-ups aren't very good, but it can't be like, no, he just stopped doing inspections. That's not okay. Maybe they're wearing a hat for one day, and you're like, I'm going to turn my cheek, but if they're wearing the whole week, I'm going to take that hat off, or I'm going to give them another hat. Like, I might give them a little bit of time, but this is something we do now, not something that's an option or choice. And it goes back to that why of,
just the why.
It's important for us to have this with our customers.
I'll
Our
give you a
daughter, our
practical.
sisters, our mothers.
If you build the Taj Mahal on top of a swamp, in a week, you're going to have a swamp with the Taj Mahal destroyed at the bottom of it. If you have a terrible inspection process, or a process where the technician doesn't value the inspection, you cannot change the result by changing the tool that you use.
Correct.
Perfect.
Yep. In every scenario, I've seen the objection of digital to paper. I observe those shops. They have no inspection process. There is no inspection process. They might check some things in boxes on a paper form, but the process isn't actually even occurring in most of the cases in that.
Yeah, so think about the Reddit post that, once again, Scott came on. These technicians are saying they're not going to do digital inspection. Craig, they're not doing inspections.
Not doing
and that's a massive disservice. So if my technicians at my shop,
I get under a car and I try to flash out a few things they might think.
But that's not the service we need to be running.
I'll equate it to my world. Somebody comes to a class and they go through the class, they pay for it. And 2 weeks later, the owner calls me up and says, my guy didn't learn anything. It would be like me going, well, I have an online one he can do.
At least they called you.
Yeah, I got online. Yeah,
I got an online one he can do. Here, I got a book he can read. Here, I'm just changing the tool. Like eventually, if all of these options don't work, what's the common denominator? If you don't have good inspections, it's not the tools. A hammer's a hammer, whether you have a Husky hammer, a Snap-on hammer, or a Milwaukee hammer. They're all hammers.
So in these circumstances, there's a scapegoat to a real underlying problem. And a lot of times when you're addressing friction, this is the importance of the acknowledge and the probe element, because like we started this conversation with, when you're actually addressing a problem, you might be addressing the wrong problem.
Oh, and that's exactly it, Craig.
Yep.
When I go into a shop for a face-to-face consultation, I'm there for a week and I can't get my guys to do inspections. Okay, why? I don't know. They suck.
I don't know. I've heard this phrase so many times.
You've been trying to do this for 10 years and you don't know why? So what do I do? Well, I'm super smart, so I have this spreadsheet. No, I walk out of the shop. Guys, what sucks about inspections? And they don't stop talking. They're not right. There is no right or wrong here.
And occasionally they are. Finally, you get to this gem. I was at an on-site earlier this year, and I think the manager had it in for me, wanted to see me like hit their hardest technician first. That's the first person I was introduced to. And sure enough, this guy's bristled up and said, oh, yeah, this, that. He's got a problem with the tablet. He's got this and that. And then I just let him talk. I just let him talk after introducing myself and asking him if there's any problems. And he gave me the problems, but then he started talking to me about how I do understand like why pictures are helpful and all these things. He started selling me the tool. The man actually just started going into the things that he understands that are a positive outcome of this. I said, I'm really glad you see it. And here's how we address this problem you have. And then we addressed his problem. And then he had no more barriers. Not that he could speak to, whether his behavior improved or not. I think the technician had some issues in that shop with accuracy. But
this goes all the way back to friction. The person was met with friction. Let's just call it, I hate inspections. So they go back and they try to paint it a different color. And it's like, well, how about this pink inspection? I still hate inspections. Well, how about this plaid inspection? I hate inspections. Stop. Why include the person in the problem solving? And I don't care, Chris, if it's inspections or diagnostics or your kid's in trouble at school. Go seek out what other people think. They won't be right, because there is no right and wrong when you're exploring. There's just discovery. Craig, that goes back to your curiosity. I'm a fan of exploring because it gives me a visual, the monocle, the hat, and the going out and, oh, that mountain's not supposed to be here. Yeah, but it is. So go check it out.
Yeah. I love this comment from Dave here. He says a good process will stop most friction. Get your team's opinion on how it should be done, then implement it. I want to ask you guys about this. Getting the team's opinion comes up as a debate sometimes. Like, does their opinion matter? Is a question I hear all the time.
Here's how I usually, and Dave's absolutely spot on. But here's how I get the opinion. It's not, are we going to do this thing? It's, hey, we're going to do this thing. How do you think we should do this thing? Right? That's to me the way that it should be approached, right? It's not a yes or no, because there's things as visionaries and leaders that we have to do for our business that they have to go that. And sometimes you're just going to drag people along until they see what you're seeing and they're okay with it. And that, I think you have to just be okay with that. But I do value opinion. You're going to get better buy-in when you say, hey, we're going to go do this. Yeah. Thoughts on how we do this. And then let everybody hash it out. You're still going to make the decision. But one of the things is too, I think, is everybody gets to, this goes back to the acknowledge earlier. You're acknowledging and giving people a voice to this thing. And sometimes people just want to be heard and make sure that they voice their opinion on whether or not they're going to do it. And they're going to go along. They're still going to object to going along, but they might go along easier because at least their voice was known about and they got to voice their objection.
So when you have a team, a functional team, right? We don't have the time to get into that, but let's say that the team interacts well, they function well together. What they do naturally is build on the idea. Well, can we do this? Well, does it have to be this way? When you don't have a team, you get the exact opposite. I like visuals, so I call it the crab pot. If you've ever had a bunch of crabs in a pot and you put in boiling water, they start to climb out, and the crabs at the bottom grab the crab that's at the top and pull them back in. Yep. So you get guys that shoot down ideas. It's their default mode. There's a whole thing on Plato with the cave. Anybody who's academically minded, it's fascinating. This has been around for thousands of years in human behavior. But Chris, to your point, like that's what you have to do in a meeting when you're getting buy-in. The goalpost or the guardrails are, we're doing this. You don't have an opinion on that part. We're doing it. What you have an opinion on is how we go about it. So here's the goal. I don't care if we take the scenic route through the mountains or go to the beach first or go straight, but we're doing it. So how would you guys like to get there? And then you honestly debate, maybe some, when you frame it that way, you get a little more of the building that a team does, as opposed to the tearing down that a dysfunctional team does.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Craig, real quick, but I know we're like,
go ahead,
can we run that promotion real quick, just so we can run a quick commercial in the middle as I interrupt the quick commercial for Autoflow real quick? You want to give them that promo?
No, okay.
We got a captive audience. They're captive right now, Craig. Just capture them.
I hear you. Yeah, no, what we are looking for is a short video review, self-done with your cell phones of your team, 1 to 2 minutes of you talking about, hey, how great Autoflow is in your shop. And first 5 that submit a video will receive $100.
$100 gift card. So then go buy lunch for their team. Well, that was
or something else.
Or something else. Take the $100 and go buy yourself lunch multiple times. Yes. So going back to, yes, I agreed. And also I wanted to put this point in. When you are a visionary and a leader, you are going to make decisions and go directions that will be wrong, and it's okay as well. That's just going to happen. Get used to making. I said this before I worked for other people, before I worked for myself. I'd say, why do you work for yourself now, Chris? And I said, I got tired of suffering other people's foolish decisions. I wanted people to suffer my foolish decisions because that's the truth, right? Like when you work for somebody else, they're a fool, but then now I'm the fool, right? And let's be perfectly clear. I am going to make bad decisions because I'm going to have a vision that I think is going to be right. And it's not.
It's our job to make them right.
But by the way, you're also going to have leaders in your organization, if you're building leaders that are also going to say, hey, this is the goal. Let me go this way to get there. And you're like, yeah, the goal's over here. You're going this way. And you've got to let them do it. Yeah. You could tell them, hey, have that healthy conversation, but allowing them to go make mistakes and find their way around is sometimes something you got to do. Short of them burning down the building, you got to let them run the other opposite direction, because if not, they won't ever create autonomy in their decision making.
So we can bring this all the way back to the beginning conversation. If you want to go, you went left, that's my right.
Yeah.
And everybody in the shop is resisting, you missed acknowledging in the beginning.
Yeah.
You missed finding out, hey, this is where I want to go. What do you guys think? Or, and that's not contradictory to we're going to do this. There are times to have that lay it out conversation that says, we need to modernize. What are your thoughts on that? And just very high level informational, test the waters.
There were 2 comments in our chat here. One from Mike on the why. We put that on the screen. And there was a question earlier from Alan Jones as well. I'm going to pop that up here too. Is how do you probe the angry person caring about what what's making them angry. Now, I feel like these are sort of related because there seems to be in a lot of those cases where someone's angry, we still have misalignment on why we're even having a conversation, much less what it is that we want to do. And then we're not even getting close to the how we're going to do it yet, unless we've addressed, like Mike was saying, the why. And I feel like in this case, to answer Alan's question, there's something about trying to understand what they think is important, why they do this work,
Alan,
they understand it.
This question is legitimately 30 hours worth of work.
But you got 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 30 seconds.
So to address what I can in the question, I need to know what's happening prior to that. Are you walking up to a random person and going, "You look pissed off"? That's never going to go well because you're throwing instead of pitching. You just threw a ball at the catcher, and if it's a ball or a strike, who knows?
It's like the opening pitch in every game.
Yeah. 50 Cent, But if you are engaged, Alan, I'll try to answer your question this way. If you're engaged with someone and they become angry, don't ask them if they're angry. Mention, "I see this is upsetting you." It's called reflective statements, and you're just calling out the emotion for what you think is happening. You're not accusing them of it. You're angry. Again, it comes back to tone, and you're not asking a comma stupid question mark. Are you angry? Of course, they seem angry. Don't ask a stupid comma stupid question mark question, and don't blame them for being angry. Just state what you think is obvious. Is this upsetting you? Or as soon as we mention you having to come back for the third time, you appear to be upset. Lay it out as if, "Hey, I'm trying to figure this all out and get it right. Please correct me." A little bit of humbleness next to your assertiveness keeps you from getting aggressive. So, Alan, I hope I answered your question.
I thought that was great, Dennis.
You don't walk up to somebody and go, "You look pissed." That's a good way to get punched.
Or don't be angry. You don't need to be angry. Telling them
I won't engage you until you calm down.
That they want to feel. Yeah. Once again, going back to whatever I call technical support for any company whatsoever, and they're like, "You need to calm down," and I just get 10 times more pissed off. Right? That's all that does. Just irritates. There's going to be even more friction because now I want to talk to your manager and your manager's manager, and you're going to hang up on me. Which, by the way, I've been hung up like this last year on more like Fortune 50 companies than ever before in my
They're
life.
allowed to hang up on us now.
They do hang up. They do hang up on you, and then I know they go back and they delete the call, and they, because I'm like, I want somebody to hear that. But yeah, it's incredible how much you get hang up on Fortune 50 companies.
The science behind it is I'm allowed to feel however I want. Whether or not it's productive is connected to this conversation, but I feel whatever I want. I am in control of my emotions, not you. So don't you dare tell me how to feel. It's the same science behind telling an anxious or angry person to calm down.
Yeah, anger, like you discussed this earlier too. I do genuinely believe that anger is an expression of some vulnerability or a threat that's being perceived by someone else.
That's a whole other hour.
Oh, it is. But yeah, like I say this because I spent years angry in the family business. And anytime someone asked me, are you angry? I was like, what? No, but I was. I didn't necessarily know how to articulate the fact that I was. In fact, displaying anger wasn't my intention.
Craig, I call BS on that because I've seen you angry and you're really not angry. Like, I get angry.
Yeah. I've gotten way better. You met me in my mid-30s.
Your anger is like, yeah.
They didn't ask it in a way you felt comfortable saying yes. right? So this gets a little bit on the softer side of things, but the person has to feel comfortable that telling the truth is okay.
Mm-hmm.
If they are suspicious, that should be a key word for you two. If they are suspicious of your motives, you're not going to get to
or if they feel threatened by you already and it's source of their anger and you're the one now trying to address it, they may not trust. There may not be trust.
So that's where suspicion comes from, is lack of trust and a lack of knowing. And you can have an objection and you now have to make a decision. Do you just, it's on the table, so sit on it. Well, it sure seems like you're angry. But if you want to talk about, and then go back to the issue at hand, you have to talk about the problem and where the person is. That has to be the dual conversation. But
since we haven't put on a book recommendation, I'm going to recommend 5 dysfunctions of a team, baseline trust, and then the next thing is the ability to have a disagreement with. Once you have trust, you can have healthy disagreement. To get to the top level, it is about friction. I mean, the 5 dysfunctions of the team is first having that trust with everybody, and then it's just levels of how you deal with other people. And friction is absolutely part of the 5 dysfunctions.
Friction is necessary.
Yes, it is necessary to build a great organization.
Getting along, if everybody's being nice, you have a problem. It's just not on the surface yet.
We've taught this, Chris and I, in our class on change management, and I've learned this from Brandon Wojciko. He's with the Ramsey Group, but he talked on 2 characteristics every team needs to have. They must be able to act, and they must be able to argue. And you have to be able to do both things. And argue seems like the wrong term. It's like, wow, why do we need to argue? You need to come to true agreement. A true agreement generally happens between 2 people through some form of discussion where there's a debate, hence arguing. And once you do come to a decision, you have to be able to execute and act. And if you don't have the arguability and you don't have the actability, then there's really 4 types of personalities that come out of that. But long conversation there. But act and argue.
When someone else is debating strategies or unknowingly ad hominem, no true Scotsman, false, it gets very difficult. No doubt. But you can either.
And some people are okay with prolonged misalignment.
They are, and sometimes you have to ask yourself, does this person need to be happy for me to get along with them? Some people are happy being miserable. Is that keeping us from our goal, or is it an internal thing where I associate happiness with productivity? I personally believe that agitated employees are the most productive employees. There needs to be an edge. It's a fine line between stress and productivity, because stress is too much agitation, productivity plummets. But if there's no agitation, everyone just gets to stand around and be on their phone and do whatever they want.
Yeah. There's no catalyst.
There should be an urgency. Ham soup, have a maximum sense of urgency pronto.
That's what, dude, spot on. Wojciko's thing with the act and argue is cultivating a shared sense of urgency was the thesis behind that, and that you need both of those abilities to do that, and that shared urgency is good.
It doesn't mean running out to the shop to get an oil change done in 10 minutes. It doesn't have to mean.
Oh, you mean that it's just getting that car in, out, wham, bam, done? Isn't the whole goal?
Pepe Le Pew is perfectly acceptable. It's preferred.
Nice.
Running means you're behind, you're out of control. Something bad's going to happen in a shop where guys have lightsaber fights with fluorescent lights. There should never be running. It's a bad idea.
Have you seen this?
Lightsaber fights? I've been in them. Burned out fluorescent light bulbs.
Ooh. Oh, brother. Wow. Well, we are at the end of the hour here, guys, and I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation, and getting you both in the room here did not disappoint for me at all, and I trust the same for our audience. Boy, we could do this again and again and again, never run out of material, I feel like. Any final comments before we sign off?
Yeah, I think we got through question 2 of 17. That's
we got our outline.
We got through question number 1.
Knew it would happen.
Number 2. Thanks, Craig. Thank you, Dennis, for joining us. It's been enjoyable, super enjoyable, always.
It truly has been too long because, we will have to do this again. So, folks, look for that again as we roll out our webinars for next year. We can try to get a little more advanced notice on many of these things, but these are available on the website, autoflow.com/webinars. And please don't forget, if you're watching now or watching the recording, just assume that you still have a chance. Go ahead and send us that short video, and hey, if we can send $100 your way for a kind word.
First 5.
Not a bribe.
Make sure, Craig, it's the first 5. The first 5 get it. Not everybody. First 5. Just want to make sure we clarified that too.
Chris is very generous, but yes, no, we are.
Hey, I want Christmas present too. Is all I need to say. Make sure that my kids I can buy them socks.
No, and as we put this recording together, we'll make sure you have a way to reach out to Dennis. But Dennis, if people have questions for you, what's the best way to reach out?
Cardinalbrokers.com. If you're looking to, if you're an owner looking to reach a point where you want to sell your business, you want to maximize how much you get for your business in tire and automotive, we are the business to reach out to. You can check out our website, cardinalbrokers.com. And if you're interested in consulting or education, you can reach out to me at that same website. And we can obviously talk about it first and do it live in person so we know what we're looking for.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And you help businesses sell when they don't have friction, right? No friction allowed, or no?
I help owners align profitabilities and priorities. And then we bolted on half a decade ago, helping them cross that finish line so that they maximize when they sell. So it's not a mad scramble to get the numbers up at the end.
Beautiful. The right man to talk to. Thanks so much, Dennis. And thanks again, Chris, for helping us get this topic together for one, and the inspiration to continue to pursue these topics with our clients and affording us the opportunity to do so.
You got it.
I love it. It's good fun. Fulfilling work. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We look forward to seeing you soon. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year as well. We'll talk to you again in another webinar in 2026. Have a great day.